Tony, we ready to launch? You want to do it? All right, let's do this. Okay, good afternoon, folks. We have the next panel coming up for Nottingham Comic Con. On our panel today, we have Warwick Johnson-Cadwell, 21st Century Tank Girl. Let's give him a round of applause, our creators. Yeah. And we have Ilya, our creator on Kid Savage, the new product coming up. We'll talk about that later. And, yeah. Clap, clap, clap. And on the end here, we have Robert Dearst, creator of Troy Trail Blazer, coming through Phoenix. Hey. Lovely. Gentlemen, tell me, what are we working on at the moment and what is happening with you? Warwick.
I'm working on a couple of things which I can't tell anybody about, which is the most...
We all signed an NDA, right? I'm pretty sure I signed something. You can tell us.
But I am also working on something I've been working on and telling everyone about for about 5 years and not finished yet, which is Jungle, which I'm working on for Blank Slate Books. Not a very big book, just taking me ages to do it.
So is Blank Slate a British publisher, or is that overseas?
Nope, Blank Slate are a sort of an independent-sized publisher. They publish various bits and pieces. And yeah, I've been trying to get this book finished for them for about 8 years. But in between, I've been jumping out to do things like Tank Girl. They did a book called Nelson, which was an anthology. I did a strip in, and so yeah. So
lovely. So Jungle, has it got an elevator pitch?
Has it got? Sorry.
Has it got an elevator pitch?
No. It's a really kind of meandering, a sort of amorphous kind of. It's a jungle. It's a jungle, and you're just peering in on all the things that are going on there, and it's different characters getting up to different stuff. There's sort of day-to-day activities, but there's no sensible thread except the environment they're in.
Lovely.
So yeah, it's kind of an oddity, which also made it difficult for me to finish, obviously. Mm-hmm. But yeah.
Oh, great. Ilya, tell us, you edited an awful lot of large anthologies. You can see in front of us here, there's the Mammoth Book of Skulls, Room for Love, and the Cult Comics. But what are you working on at the moment as a creator?
Okay. Project that's been in the works for a few years, working in collaboration with an American writer called Joe Kelly.
He's worked on a lot of Image and Marvel stuff, hasn't he?
He has. He's one of a team of a kind of little community of creators out in America. He's American. There's 4 of them, and together they created a thing called Ben 10, which people might have heard of, and Big Hero 6 as well is one of theirs.
Very successful animated things now, aren't they? Ben 10's quite a staple on cartoon sites, isn't it?
Has been. Yeah. I think it's had its day, probably.
Has it? Okay, fine.
Somewhere around the world it's still on show.
Yep.
And so Joe and I decided to get together and do something that didn't have a number in the title. So we're just doing Kid Savage 1. So we're doing the first volume of that. It'll come out as a book rather than as a comic series, so that's why it's taken so long. It's 160 pages of it. It's all done now. I have the pages back from the colourist, who's Gary Caldwell in Scotland, and I'm just going through them, tweaking and putting, special effects in and things like that. So that should be due next year, hopefully not too deep into the year.
Is that a hardback release, softback release? Is it?
Hardback would be nice, but it's not our decision. I think I just cut out.
Mike's gone out, Andy. Andy.
Yeah.
Mike out.
Yeah.
Tech support.
It's Image Comics, and I don't think they've done many hardbacks so far, so Economics probably mean it's a soft cover. But it'll be a nice thick comic. This one doesn't work.
Mike's out.
It's on there. It's working now.
It's on there?
You're right.
Yeah, we're good. Carry on.
You're right.
Have you got a question about it?
No, sorry. So
I don't have an elevator pitch. I don't have an elevator pitch.
Back on again.
Oh, is it? Okay. Now we're squealing. But basically, it's my homage to a comic called Commandy that Jack Kirby did in the 1970s that I grew up on, and that's kind of the last boy on Earth. That's all you need to know about that one. But that's a comic that Joe's never read, and he's doing it because of a cartoon series called The Herculoids, which I've never seen. So hopefully between us, we should come up with an original beast from that sort of synthesis of childhood loves. But all you need to know is survival on a savage planet where nothing is remotely recognisable.
And it's he's the last kid alive. Is that the,
Kinda, and then the Fantastic Four kind of crash from space.
as they tend to do? They have a habit of that.
So it's a family unit that he has to kind of become part of. So it's kind of about, I suppose, family values in a world where there are no rules.
Fantastic.
And how to survive, which we could all, skills we could all come to do with.
Absolutely, no, that sounds fantastic. And Robert, you're currently, is it Troy Trailblazers taking up most of your time?
Yeah, Troy Trailblazer, which appears inside the pages of The Phoenix, which is a weekly story comic for kids. It's similar in sort of format to the Beano, and it has lots and lots of different strips in every week, lots of different genres. And Troy is the science fiction strip that's in there. I've got a current run that's got 4 more episodes left, so 4 more weeks on that. Ends with a big twist, that's all I'm going to say. And then I've got another series coming up next year as well. So.
Fantastic. That sounds good. So that's and how many issues do you tend to release as part of an issue and collect them?
Well, usually it's a 16-week run, so it's 48 pages, so 3 pages every week. And the Horde Queen is the one that's been collected as a book recently. So.
Oh, fantastic. So you say you're putting work out through the Phoenix. How important is it, do you find, as a British creator, independent creator, to have these anthology titles looking for creators to make work to go into these pages, considering they have quite a wide distribution, being in newsagents and bookshops and all sorts of places. Are these places still important, the anthology titles for you?
Yeah, I mean, anyone can create their own comic and they can self-publish it, and there's no boundaries these days with web comics and stuff like that. I mean, I myself started off doing web comics. That's how this guy saw my work, and that led on to being in the Mammoth Book of Best New Manga. So there's always a way to get your work out there. But in terms of paid work with a page rate, doing stuff for the Phoenix is fantastic. I mean, I can write and draw my own characters and make a living and support my family. So
absolutely
good stuff.
Warwick, do you find the same thing, that it's important to have these anthologies to open up the opportunity for new creators and fresh blood to have somewhere they can go to submit work?
Yeah, definitely. My first bits and pieces of printed work were through anthologies where I'd been invited to join in, and I just wouldn't have got them done. The size of the strip is much more manageable. You can't really print an 8-page story and sell it particularly easily, because most comics are bigger and you can do smaller short pages and things like that. So, but also because you then get involved with other artists, which are part of the anthology. I mean, it's easy for people to coordinate, or easier for people to set up an anthology and coordinate a group of artists that they like, or try and find them. So if you're interested in producing something new, as a whole, or you can do that much more easily by spreading the load out, finding who's interested. You can spread out costs, or you can do it other ways. And so I've never sort of put together and produced an anthology, but that side of it's quite helpful if you're interested in producing a comic that you want to sell or you want to spread around. Whereas, I mean, certainly easier with webcomics, which is where I think my work was seen the first few times, for people to then get in touch and say, do you want to put something together? A group of people doing it together is very helpful in terms of, you could several more people to publicise it. If you've got a couple of very well-known people that people would be interested in, then of course your work, if it's not so well known, will be seen by whole new audiences. So there's a load of different reasons why they can be a very good idea, and they can be, when they work well, a really interesting book to buy as well, because it gives you a selection of viewpoints and artists and writers and all this sort of stuff. So you can collect in one go, and then you can. From my memories of a youngster reading anthology comics on a weekly basis, you didn't like all the strips. They weren't all great. The ones that you loved and the ones that you liked and the ones that I'd skip. But then there's ones that I'd never seen before, or then one day decided maybe I'd have a look at and read, and then found that they were good. So definitely worthwhile.
And Ilya, as an editor, how do you find approaching the idea of all these short-form stories and collecting them together as a body of work? So each issue could come out, and is it that they're collected as a theme? That some of them you might say, oh, this issue is all about space operas, or this issue is all about medieval action, or something. Is that thought into it, or is it just whatever content's there, that's what goes in?
Obviously, I try and curate a good mix, a varied mix of stuff. I actually, myself, don't much like anthologies because there's always stuff you want to scalpel out and throw away. So there is an advantage when you're putting it together. One would hope you like everything that you've put in it because you're kind of curating it like somebody putting together an art exhibition would. But to be brutally honest, it's more of necessity in a market that's just not big enough to support solo works. So going back to Best New Manga that Rob mentioned, there was 3 volumes of that between 2006 2008. Each one was 500 pages or so, about 448 pages big.
Because you picked Robert's work, didn't you, out for the collection? But was that one of your first, or was it your first?
Yeah, that was my first published work. Yeah.
So you guys have got quite there's a connection going back some time then for work that's previous. Sorry, carry on.
I mean, most of the people in that, there would be about 26 contributors per volume of that because of the page count. And that could be anywhere between a single page to one of them was 100 pages long, one of the strips.
100 pages in one of them?
Chair Kutsuwada's strip about...
was it one panel per page? Was that?
No, because manga's long form, so properly it should run to many pages. You know, you should not be afraid to eat pages when you're making comics, especially manga-type comics. But the thing I was aware of was everybody in there, all 26 of them, that was usually their first time in print. Because they could put their stuff on the internet endlessly, but they didn't necessarily know about print. And I taught some people, how it works and how you paginate and all that business, and crop and bleed and reproduction. But I was aware that every single one of those people could have filled a 500-page book by themselves, and that would be the ideal. That would be what we want. We were trying to show what would be a weekly in Japan we can do annually, those anthology titles that appear on their newsstands. So we have no comparison, and still I would much rather see solo books by creators, even if they have to be generated through an anthology appearances. It's one single statement that really interests me. More.
Because some creators need that opportunity to do a short form, that they need a way that their story that they're telling at that particular moment isn't fleshed out to all those pages. So an anthology or that submission to these collections maybe gives them that exposure, or at least time, to produce a full-length piece of work that then has people recognise the name and can produce from there. Is that a fair...
No, I would actually say they're all professional and they're all ready.
Fantastic.
In 3 years I only had one person, Fluff, on the deadlines, and so they're all professional, they're all ready to work. It's just there isn't enough publishing to support that, and we are heading towards a scene now, like the music industry, where it fractures to such a degree. You're going to be better off self-publishing and independently publishing, because if we're all chasing sales of about 2,000, you might as well be doing that and selling it yourself and not looking after somebody else's bigger overheads. So I think that's where we're going.
Okay.
And all those people, the ones that stick to it, will be making their own books, whether they're floppies, whether they're Xeroxed, photocopied that is, or whether they're printed, or kickstarted, whatever route you can find through, they're taking it, and that's what makes comics really interesting right now.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, so Robert, you worked on the Macbeth book that was done through, what was the publisher name again on that?
That's through Self-Made Hero.
Self-Made Hero. Self-Made Hero are a real powerhouse of British publishing at the moment, aren't they? They're putting out quite a lot of strong works through very evocative creators who are doing interesting topics. And yours was manga, but taking on the subject of Shakespeare. Was that? Obviously the manga influence is there, but how is it playing that off against something so Western and English as Shakespeare?
Well, the main thing that I think Self-Made Hero are trying to do was to get younger people interested in Shakespeare, to engage them with it. Maybe kids that maybe wouldn't naturally pick up a Shakespeare book, and make it appeal to them. So with Macbeth, it's usually tartan and medieval type setting. This is set in a post-apocalyptic wasteland with mutants and futuristic samurai. It's totally not the way you would expect Macbeth to be. And with the other books in the range as well, Romeo and Juliet was Yakuza gangs. Hamlet was set in like a cyber world and stuff. It's just about finding a new way to sort of engage readers and stuff and get them into Shakespeare. And hopefully when they've read this, they'll then go and pick up the proper play and go and get an A on their exam.
Saying they used it as reference material, absolutely.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't recommend using mine as reference material, but
is it using the traditional text?
Yes,
Shakespeare's own words?
it's edited down quite a lot,
Right.
but it is traditional text, yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Well, you're doing 21st Century Tank Girl.
Yep, done.
How's that? It's done. You're finished. You're done on it.
Yeah, that's all sorted. Yeah.
How was that working? Because the Tank Girl's got a quite a strong following of fans and quite a solid fan base. How did you find that diving into that world?
It was pretty daunting when I first started because, there's a fairly massive audience, and it's not so easy to pin down necessarily what everyone's favourite thing about Tank Girl is. We were talking about it just recently, but a lot of people don't know the comics necessarily as well, but are a big fan of the character or the identity and things like that. So yeah, definitely going in was quite daunting, and Jamie Hewlett's work was always a big influence. Something I'd really always impressed, and so I always felt that the character was always best with his artwork. So I kind of had to, I sort of prepared for a rough ride really, and then just had to just ignore everything and just get on, just do it the way I wanted to do it, and then wait and find out how much trouble I was going to get in at the end in terms of fans and things like that, because there was no point in worrying. I didn't want to change my work to look maybe more like his, or there was a few artists since him. Unfortunately, they'd pick ones that are quite different, like Jim Mahfood or Mick McMahon, and quite specific styles. Mm-hmm. So it just seemed like a good idea just to go down, do what I wanted to do, or just
do what you do best.
Stick to what I do, and then sort of face the music at the end. So
was it a rough ride? Did you find Tango? Was it something that was a real challenge? Was there something that was learned from it towards your own work then, of being sort of taken into something that's already established and lessons into your own?
Yeah, there was a certain sort of negative reaction with certain numbers of fans, but they got so many that I was expecting that. And then other than that, everything's just been positive. It was really good. 21st Century Tank Girl is an anthology, and it was kickstarted, and the other artists who are in there, Jamie Hewlett he came back to do a Tank Girl strip for the first time in ages, as well as other Tank Girl artists, and some new fellas. And it was really a privilege to be in that book. So that part was super positive, but also the element of Kickstarting is something I've not done myself, but it's always an opportunity. So
wonderful.
That would be just open my eyes to the possibilities of trying that sort of form as well.
Fantastic. Now, we want to try and throw some questions out to the audience. Has anybody got any questions for our creators today? Yeah, in the back corner. Lovely. You got that, darling? Lovely, sweetie. Don't go down that far. It's baiting you.
Hi there. You've talked a lot about Kickstarter. Have you ever heard of Patreon? If you have, what do you think of it?
What do you guys think of? So you've worked in Kickstarter. What do you think of Patreon as a topic?
I've not done either, but I imagine it's the same idea, pretty much, isn't it?
Well, Kickstarter is where you put out a project and you say, I need to collect so many fundings, and then have you done Patreon or Kickstarter?
No, I've seen people that have done Patreon. Do you know about Patreon?
The difference, I think, is that Kickstarter is a goal. You set up a goal to aim for, whereas a Patreon is it's what an art patron is. It's someone who supports artists, and that's it is a patron, and I think it's a great idea. Obviously, if people are going to give you money. So you don't have to go out and do. I still work in day jobs, so I do less of them now than I did. But it's also, I've been put off in terms of some of the organisation with Kickstarter before, because it's quite a massive amount of stuff to sort of get to grips with and make sure you do properly. And I think Patreon's the same, because from what I understand, you're giving people are contributing a monthly or whatever.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
it's
you've
a
got to make sure you
continuing
produce
source of money, isn't it?
that
Income. Yeah.
and make it worthwhile for them to do it, which is going to encourage people to do it, or encourage people who do support you to stay and do that as well.
Big commitment, isn't it? I think.
Yeah,
Patreon.
I think it's a great idea, but I need to fine-tune my organisation before I try and make sure it works. But I
Slash
don't want
employ
to go-
someone do it for you.
Sorry?
Slash employ someone to do it for you.
Well, yeah, that's probably not a bad idea. But yeah, I think I don't know whether sometimes these things, as I say, I don't know with Patreon, because you don't have like a final product as such, or the process of kickstarting is that people go to fund it, and if it doesn't work, nothing happens. And I've supported stuff which hasn't worked, which is fine, but I've supported stuff that has worked, and then it's just taking a long time to appear. Now your money's been collected and paid, and you're waiting for this to come out. And I've also heard stories about Kickstarter sort of going wrong.
Yes,
And,
I've heard some horror stories about
yeah.
people who pay for something and the creator says, oh, it's done, and suddenly the book's in bookshops and the people who paid on Kickstarter for it haven't got it. So what's that about?
I haven't. Yeah, but I mean, it is a difficulty, because people are giving you money, and you need to make sure you are able to return, whatever it is you've offered with it. So the Tank Girl one was unusual because it was a massively supported, and so Alan Martin, the writer of Tank Girl, he had suddenly he had an awful lot more support than he was expecting, and so he had to find what he was going to do to make it worthwhile for everybody.
So would any of you consider a Patreon or a Kickstarter for an anthology or for a book of your own, perhaps?
To be honest, I think I'd find it too stressful.
Okay.
I just like the amount of sort of self-publicity, like you have to really promote it yourself, and the amount of time on Twitter and Facebook and all that kind of stuff you have to do to promote the fact that you're doing a Kickstarter. I don't know if I'd have the time to do it.
I feel like it soaks up too much time just promoting it before
Well, yeah,
even getting on with the work.
The end result, obviously, potentially could be fantastic, but I don't know. I think you need to have a real online presence, or like with Tank Girl, like it's a popular thing, so people are aware of it. If it's just something that you've created, like if I come up with a new character and I wanted to create my own comic book and do it on Kickstarter, yes, I've got the readers from the Phoenix and stuff, but whether I would have enough to really sort of get enough to produce my own book, I don't know. Maybe not, and then it could be bad for your ego.
Ilya,
If it doesn't go right.
do you have a weigh in on this as an editor on that side of it, on sort of further along the chain part, or even as a creator? Would you feel like you want to put out one of your own titles as a Kickstarter to have crowdfunding? Drops the shoulder.
I mean, basically, the editing work I do is, in one sense, my Kickstarter. In that, that's what helps me. I mean, to do a graphic novel like that, even though it's through a publisher, the advance is not great for the time you spend producing it. So I bankrolled that by editing this and this in the same year. So one feeds the other. But I'm kind of more keen to make comics than anything else.
So you're keen to be more as a creator than an editor?
Yeah, everything else is a compromise, really. So
was that a change for you, like quite a sea change, that you got to a point and felt that you wanted to create more than edit? Is that?
I've been at that point for a while.
Okay.
I'm in my 50s now, so it's like I feel if I don't get a book out a year that's completely independent statement, what am I doing here? And it's been such a struggle over the decades to get things out that I'm trying to make up for lost time from the position I now find myself in. But yeah, a realistic option is either trying to get a grant, which is very difficult. You have to spend about up to 3 months putting together your grant application to get it, and then like what happened to me, it's turned down because 40 to 60% of grant applications have to be turned down. That's just the reality of it. So unless you're one of the others who gets it, you're no closer. So I am scared of it for all the reasons that Rob says, the logistics of it, the organisational side of it that Warwick mentions, but I'm running out of options.
Okay.
So if I want more of my own work out,
You might
I've got to
consider
fund it somehow.
Fund it somehow.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any more questions?
Any millionaires in the room, please come see me.
Get your checkbook ready. Do you have any more questions from the audience? Anybody else want to post something?
No, all
Sugar?
I've got is
You got one?
what are you currently working on? What have you got either come out recently or you're planning to come out soon? What would you like to talk about you got coming out?
Can we just do that?
I thought we did that, but sure.
We do that at the start.
Where were you? Were you at the
Well, I was
bar?
there, yeah.
Did we leave you at the bar?
Weren't you listening?
He wasn't, apparently, no.
We're not seeing your 3 books. I was thinking of Ilya there to mention them.
Well, I'll tell you what table are you at, Ilya? It's me. What table are you at? What number?
Okay, I'm up in the middle of the upper floor with these lovely books, and come see me.
Fantastic. Robert, what number's your table?
U27. I'm 3 away from him.
Oh, fantastic. So you go one to the next. Wonderful. And Warwick, where
I'm
can we find you?
Different floor altogether. L28 probably. I forgot my tablecloth, so recognisable because I haven't got one.
That's fine. You
And
can head
there's-
down there straight
but-
from here.
Yeah, I got
Yeah,
there.
and then go
Tank Girl
upstairs.
bits, books, and a few other bits and pieces as well. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. So thank you very much, guys. It's been an enlightening talk. So thank you very much. Can we say a big thank you to Warwick Johnson-Cadwell, Ilya,
you.
and Robert Diaz. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks.
Spanish gentlemen.
Diaz. Yeah. So next panel is at 3 o'clock. 3 o'clock. Lovely. Thanks.
Traveling to the past without a safety net. Traveling to the